Previously on Irae.
私はシュピーネ清掃13騎士団国園宅第10位ロートシュピーネ以後お見知りおきよ親愛なるザラトゥストラしかり我ら国園宅を率いる狩猟代行クリストフ・ローエン・グリーン恐ろしく滑稽で道化者ではありますが油断のならぬお方です。ベイやマレウスからは露骨に警戒されているものの私はそれなりに信頼していると言っていい、少なくともあの5人に比べれば人間らしい部分もお持ちのようですからね。レオンハルトが講義をそして私が実技の方を適材適所というやつですか。あちらのあれはあなたにやる気を出していただくよう遊びで用意したものですよ。まあ若干趣味の領域でもありますがね。良いですかサラツストラ、あなたも覚えておきなさい。手を結ぶなら自己と正反対である人種の方が信用できるものなのですよ。サラトゥストラ、私と手を組みませんか。あなたの力をお借りできれば共に永劫の自由を獲得することも夢ではない。
交渉決裂だシュピーネ。霞にちょっかいかけた時点でお前はぶっ殺すって決めてんだよ。
あなたはまだ生物の形成ができていない。そんなことで私に勝つことはできませんよ。違いますね。すでに大手ですよサラトゥストラ。
Can I truly wield you? Will you permit me to lift you out of here? In the end, am I a man worthy of you?
Yetzirah.
Episode 22. Yetzirah. Welcome back, everybody, to Irae. Here we are. We have formation. Yetzirah. For those of you who don't know what that means or what Asaya means in that matter, they're basically based off the Kabbalah. They're different worlds, 4 different worlds, spiritual worlds, and Yetzirah is one of them. Basically, it's like an old, ancient, like Jewish teaching. Basically, kind of the relationship between a person and like the eternal and God, or whatever. It's very in depth. I can't really explain it all here, but it's pretty fascinating stuff. It's kind of funny that a bunch of German Nazi Jew haters are using originally a Jewish teaching, which is kind of funny. But that's neither here nor there. Here we go. And with that, my arm welcomed the guillotine. Oh dear. Come on, Ren. Come on. Oh my god. Look at that thing. Oh. It's got a little doodle on it. Is that a skull? What is that? Probably a skull. I couldn't tell whose words left my lips, but at that moment my consciousness exploded in a torrent of chaos, culminating in a storm to wash over my entire being. Words soaked deep in sorcery, an evocation that belonged only to me. Its echoes stirring my Ananurbe to life. The guillotine in my arm shifted and transformed into a shape most befitting to be wielded by Ren Fuji. The blade in my flesh was heavy, dark, and just the right length, a manifestation of my will, the physical incarnation of my desire to return to my old life. The refrain that once shook the execution platform rang in my ears again, the same way it did upon that twilight beach. a lust for blood so clear, so pure, so innocent and beautiful, it possessed no equal under the heavens, its melody a blessing to cradle my blade. Let us sing and fight, survive and dance, together.
ギロチンに注ごう飲み物を
ギロチンの渇きを癒すために
Together we would feed it the blood it craved. The decapitation scar that etched in my neck stood as an undeniable proof of our joined vow. I would continue to devour soul after soul, till there wasn't a single one of these bastards left standing. The steel wires tying me up had been severed to tiny pieces upon my invocation of Yetzirah. At the same time, blood sprayed forth from Spine's body in a violent surge. I knew what it meant. He had completely fused with his instrument. In that case, would destroying an Ananurbe lead its wielder's demise as well? Spine was no longer in any state to reactivate his weapon. I'd cleaved right through the steel wires. If anything, the fact that he was still alive could be considered a miracle in itself. Bastard. Oh, I'm gonna murder you. You're not getting out of this alive, buddy.
Oh, more
Oh man, look at that Ren. Look at that face on Ren, man. He is not messing around. Begging for his life like a third-rate weakling on the verge of death wouldn't do him much good. I had no idea what he planned after this, but seeing him snivel on the ground certainly wouldn't make me feel anything. Aside from pity, perhaps. Hell, getting rid of him before he made himself look even more pathetic would be for his sake, if anything. Hell if I knew. You know, it was rather fragile for something he bragged about being indestructible. But if I had to answer his question... Oh! Ren! My man! Savage as always. I unleashed my guillotine with the most unimpressed downward swing I could muster. While Spina gave me a look of unbridled terror, his eyes wide with fear and shock. Still, I owed him some modicum of gratitude. If it wasn't for Spina, that's an error. I would have never mastered formation, you know. For as much as I hate on him, I do owe him that little bit. If Sakurai was to be believed, I had built up enough strength to match up to those bastards' levels. This would be the end of the road for Spine. And soon enough, I'd send his comrades along to keep him company in the afterlife. And with that, Spine's Ananurbe vanished with its master's defeat, as did the corpses of the lives it claimed. So this is what it meant to have one's soul devoured. The moment the usurper perished, all his accumulated souls would disperse along with him. I spent a short while in silence to honor the memory of the strangers who perished here tonight. They didn't deserve to die. No one deserves to die except for those bastards. I may have been indirectly responsible for their deaths. Man. Weighs heavy on the heart, it does. But we have to get over it. They're dead, you know. The best we can do is kill these freaks and hope to keep casualties to a minimum. I avenged them, but that alone wouldn't bring any of them back to life. And most important of all, I'm turning into them. That's exactly what I don't want, but It's what I have to do. I have to become what I hate in order to defeat that which I hate.
だけどこの先もう二度とこんなことは起こさせないから。
You're damn right we're not going to let it happen. There was no one around to respond to my soliloquy. Once I'd finished paying my respects, I picked up a cell phone line on the ground nearby and headed home. But things did not seem to add up. Why would a guy like Spine go through all of that trouble to kidnap someone who looked like Kasumi and not, say, Kasumi herself? And you see, that's what I don't get. Assuming he worked under someone's orders, could it have been the will of that divine vessel guy? Maybe. And if that was the case, then why? You know, for what purpose did it serve? Are you alright, dude? Following Ren Fuji's departure, the silence of the moonlit park was unceremoniously broken by someone's ragged wheezing. Alright, it's enough. He spat out each word like the syllables of a curse, his voice trembling with wrathful resentment. He had committed a colossal oversight by underestimating the boy. Spinny would never have imagined that a pretty-faced brat, barely even worthy to be called a man, would overpower him to this extent. So he's not dead. That's a shame. They would all pay for this. Not just the boy, oh no. Each and every one of those bastards would rot in hell. Despite choking on his own blood, Spine sounded a loud cackle as he imagined the sight. The boy may have materialized rather powerful on Irae, but in the end, he was still wet behind the ears. That he left without confirming whether or not Spine had truly died stood testament to his naivete. The boy would live to regret this. Oh, they all would. First things first, though. Spine cackled on, still writhing in a pool of his own blood. He would remain in hiding until he had recovered enough, then seek the help of his comrades. Babylon, in particular, might be able to patch up even a wound this severe. If Spine was to team up with anyone, that woman would be a fine candidate. Aside from holding Cain's leash, she also possessed a much less secretive personality compared to the likes of Kristoff. Spine could no longer contain his laughter. Having decided on what to do next, he had no more use for the pact with that. Oh shit.
もう少し面白い戦いになるかと思ったのですが、所詮器が違うということですか。まったく本当に情けない。
The divine vessel. What brought him here? The priest looked down at Spine's writhing body with his trademark smile, yet the one he produced now lacked even a single ounce of warmth.
あなたはそれほどまでにハイドリ秘境が恐ろしいのですか、シュピーネ。何、ごまかすことはありません。別にあなただけでなく、私も含めた全員が思っていることでしょう。とはいえ、違いがあるとすれば恐怖の形、美観の問題でしょうかね。私もベイもマレウスもカインもバビロンもレオンハルトも怖いからといって逃げようなどとは思わない。
This guy is like seriously powerful if these guys are like scared of this guy.
私は聖戦を指揮する身です。故に戦士でない者にかける情けを持ちません。あなたは哀れで情けない。実に滑稽極まりますよ。黒煙卓の第10位は
どうやら腐っていたようですね。まあそんなあなただからこそ役に立つこともあったわけなのですが。
Each word the smiling priest uttered was another droplet of potent venom, descending upon Spine like a veil of dark blessing. After reverently making the sign of a cross, the priest brought down the blade of judgment upon his dying comrade.
せめてその汚れた魂浄化し有効利用して差し上げましょう。光栄に思いなさい。私がハイドリ秘境だったならあなたは食われているところです。第二のスワスチカ、その身をもって礎となる名誉を与えましょ
う。Without even allowing Spine to finish his plea for mercy.
天は神の栄光を語り、大空は神の手の技を示している。話すことも語ることもなく、その声が聞こえなくとも。
He stomped on Spine's head, making sure he stayed dead this time around. What secrets could the priest have harbored, being able to neutralize an apostle, even one on the verge of expiration, without even resorting to his Ananerbe? More importantly, though.
いささか役者不足かとも思いましたが、どうやらうまく機能したようですね。
This priest is he's no weakling. He's able to kill Spine without even using his weapon. Spine's body crumbled to dust, vanishing in a matter of seconds. The souls he had piled up did not disperse, and instead lingered behind for a future purpose. And so the stigmata began to ache, once again sending rivulets of fresh blood down the priest's hands, feet, and flank.
おお、これはとても痛いですね。どうやらハイドリ秘境、お怒りのご様子だ。罰は慎んでお受けしましょう。ですが、私はともかくとして、他の者らには手加減をしていただけないものでしょうか。これほどの圧をかけられては、死人の一人や二人出かねませんよ。
What the hell does that mean? And so the priest cackled. His eyes narrowed in joy, his lips curled upward, his clothes stained in vermilion blood.
まあ、これで焼き切れる魂ならば、用をなさぬということですかな。相変わらず容赦のない手厳しいお方ですね。加えてあの若者もあなたのご期待に応えることができるのでしょうか。
What happened today would not repeat itself again. The boy no doubt had a question or two regarding the body double, but Trypha had no inclination to grant him an explanation. Nor would he save him again. Body double. For Caprice alone guided the priest's hand today. Theresia's presence prompted him to act the good Samaritan for a change.
さて、しかし本当に痛いですね。やむなしとはいえ、皆は大丈夫なのでしょうか。
What the hell's going on? These guys are getting hurt too. Hydra don't fuck around, man. The hall of the Obsidian Round Table echoed with the painful screams of Wilhelm, Rusalka, and Kei Sakurai as all three writhed in agony. For the true nature of that blinding maelstrom of abnormal pain that nearly drove them to insanity was none other than... Their suffering would not cease. Instead, the blood bubbling forth from their respective stigmata stained the Obsidian Round Table crimson. They had forgotten it, taken it lightly. They had grown arrogant. intoxicated by their own ever-growing prowess. Yet little did they know how trifling that power of theirs appeared in comparison to the other fives. Such foolish conceit. Wilhelm made an attempt to reach for the Zwolf seat, only to be blown clean away as if struck by lightning. There was hardly all. The same could be said of the Noon seat, as well as the seat of Sivan. The tremendous spiritual pressure emanating from each other overwhelmed all those present in the hall. They dreaded to imagine exactly what kind of abominations would be summoned into this world upon opening all 8 magical seals. Logic did not apply here. The appointment of a traitor as a member of their sitting table, a wretch who dared tarnish honor and loyalty alike, remained a sin most grave, regardless of how much a craven fool he might have been. And with sin came punishment. Any fool that dirtied their master's abode in his absence would rightly deserve to be torn from limb to limb. The answer was clear. Commence the war. Enact a holocaust. Usher in the day of wrath. Complete the swastika. Sieg Heil Victoria. Sieg Heil Victoria. A moment later, an entity encompassing the whirlpool of a myriad souls descended upon the Ein seat. The manifestation of a phenomenally large spiritual pressure that threatened to annihilate all in its vicinity by merely appearing for a split second. The beast's pairs of eyes glimmered in brilliant gold, his mane swaying as he delivered a curt decree to his subjects. That voice, man. That is a threatening voice. The time for games has ended. No further delays would be forgiven. And so, this very moment served to ignite the flames of war in earnest. The day of wrath shall signal his coming, with heaven and earth alike dissolving in ashes, as David and the Sibyls had once foretold. Just because I managed to go through the whole experience without any losses, it didn't change a thing about the fact that I screwed up. But I honestly want to celebrate for the time being. As I returned to my apartment complex, I spotted light leaking through the windows of my room. I could only think of one person who dared trample on my privacy like that. I rushed all the way up the stairs, opened the door. What do you do in my room? And found her there, with nothing amiss. You have no idea how happy I am to see you. I just went through hell thinking you were dead. God damn, I'm so happy to see you. You don't even know. I can't get the smile off my face. I figured he's just gonna go up and just hug her. Like, how could you not, you know?
今のうちに片付けないと後で桜井さんにバレたら危ないじゃない。ほら、マグカップとか歯ブラシとかそういうの特に NG だし。
I don't even care that she salted my mug or my
そんな
toothbrush.
わけで無理やり壁の穴を通ろうとしたらレンが塞ぐのに使ってた本棚思いっきり倒しちゃったりして。
You know, in the grand scheme of things, all this crap just seems so trivial and pointless.
こりゃまずいなと思いつつ今まで掃除してたのよ。あとなんか携帯もなくしちゃってさ、もしかしたらここにあったりしないかなって。レンなんか言ってよ、ちょいプレッシャー。
I silently reached into my pocket and produced Kasumi's cell phone.
これなんでレンが持ってんの？
落ちてた。
どこに？
道端。
道端って。
I couldn't bear looking Kasumi in the eye. At this rate, I'd...
なんかよくわからないけどありがとう。
I hit my limit. See?
ちょっとレン、何をいきなり。あんた桜井さんと付き合ってるんじゃん。浮気したらダメ。
Not wanting Kasumi to see my face like this, I forcefully embraced her. I continued to mentally apologize to her with all of my heart. My carelessness today could have easily gotten her killed. I vowed never to screw up like that ever again. I hoped with all of my soul that she would forgive me.
なんで？わかんないよ。めっちゃアグレッシブだよ。何考えてんのよ。私とあんたはただの幼馴染で、こんないきなりじゃ心の準備が。違う。
Man, it sounded like I had a jackhammer next to my ears. The blind siren of her voice felt soothing beyond words, causing all of my pent-up tension to unravel in an instant. And
待って待って、いやよ。そんな押し通すのはダメだってば。けだもの、桜井さんになんて言い訳したらいいのよ。あんた刺されても知らないんだからね。
that would be probably the best case scenario with these people.
ちょっとレン、聞いてるの？おい、あんたもしかして。嘘でしょ？こいつ寝てるよ、寝てますよ。何？私枕なの？ありえねえだろ、こらバカ。どういう了見なのよ。マジムカ、女のプライドズタズタじゃないの。あんた最低。
Right, I got all that. I really did. So can I go back to sleep now? You have no idea how my day's been. I took down one of the bastards tonight. Soon there would be no more time for rest and relaxation. I was certain they would come after me in full force after this. How could they not? So if she could just let me sleep like this until dawn, that'd be great. Fuck you, Spine. One down. 11 more to go. Right? 11? No, that's not right. 12 more. Chapter 4 is over. Chapter 5, get ready to start. I don't know what's called. Find out now. Consider, if you will, the definition of a tragedy. What is a tragedy? All right? You don't know? Okay, well, then I'll explain it to you. Were we to cut straight to the chase, we would say that the word denoted the concept of loss in some form. The loss of what people held dear opened a hole in their hearts. We've all lost something, right? At some point. Family member, loved one, doesn't matter. Was not an event that drove cracks in the heart and rifts in the mind not generally referred to as a tragedy? Yet when people individually considered it important, rivaled the stars themselves in the number and diversity. Although family, friends, lovers, and the like were generally held in the highest regard by most, I knew all too well, sadly, that some would feel not a speck of emotion, shed not a single tear upon their loss. Then how were we to divine tragedy so it applied to all? In a certain book, it is written that it was hardly what one lost that ought to matter, but rather the circumstances surrounding that loss. That having something broken or stolen was far greater a tragedy than simply misplacing it. Was that really true? In tragedies with a clear perpetrator, anger made for an easy way out, you know. Someone gets murdered. Take revenge on them, on their killer. It's easy. The sorrow of the tragedy might be forgotten through hatred of the thief, and could even grant one's life a goal in the form of revenge. Could such a thing really be labeled tragedy in its purest form? I knew it was tough. That was a matter even someone as ordinary as me could comprehend. Yet I would have preferred to plunge deeper into this subject. Man's psyche was a clever construct. It pulled a safety valve the moment it found itself assaulted by a storm of deeply negative emotions. Anger and sorrow would turn to pleasure, and if it exceeded that, indifference. The heart and mind attempted to regain their balance in some shape or form, and wounds were healed, albeit in a twisted manner. With that in mind, the unclosing fissure, the unhealing, ever-bleeding wound born of tragedy. What could such a thing denote? If indeed that was possible, then surely it would be a being denied, from birth, the right to possess a single thing, its grasp empty. As it was unable to take hold of anything, neither was it capable of losing it. A being that was born deficient and would consequently never heal. An eternally lost child. I had dreamt of one such girl, and the cruel tale of her birth. France, circa 1793. There was once a married couple who lived in St. Malo of Brittany. The husband was a well-built dockhand, his wife a beautiful woman of fair disposition. They were leading what one could easily label a joyous life. The fierce storm of the revolution's ideology ushered in a violent shift in the citizens' way of thinking. The clergy and nobility were soon established as absolute evil, and the married couple, without questioning the judgment, accepted it as a truth, indulging in blind, foolish hatred. They failed to remember that, in their time of youth, it was a certain priest's assistance that eventually brought them their current bliss. He was a clergyman, and therefore evil. In the husband's mind, this plain and simple conclusion remained irrefutable. His wife was a devout Republican, even more zealous than he. So devout, in fact, that she would station herself at the foot of a guillotine hours before an execution, busying herself with knitting as she watched the heads fall. Even as she was heavy with child, and in the later stages of pregnancy, she would nonetheless make her way to the gallows every single day without fail. The husband, her knight in shining armor, would continue to escort his lovely wife to her special seat day after day. The blade of the guillotine fell, heads rolled. Blood, blood, blood. It wanted blood. After thoroughly enjoying that festival of madness, the two would make their way home, whilst discussing the future of their soon-to-be-born child. They were a joyous, blessed couple. They were upstanding citizens, their senses of values typical of all respectable townsfolk during that era. However, one day during the Messidor, the harvest festival, St. Malo came to hold an execution of particular interest. The victim was a former pastor in the Church of Christ. The aged clergyman was well known among the townsfolk, and as such everyone wished to see his expression as he rose to the gallows. Naturally, the good married couple was no exception. The wife stood with the crowd at the foot of the guillotine, her body racked with intense pains of labor, yet she stifled her screams with heroic effort, waiting in anticipation for the moment the priest would climb the scaffold. The aged pastor was a father figure to the poor and needy, a holy man who earned their love and admiration. And yet he was the enemy, a figure of wickedness, deserving punishment. His head needed to fall. And yet on that day, the executioner was nowhere to be found. Ah, such misfortune. The wife moaned with disappointment. Perhaps the executioner had fled at the idea of executing a priest of such virtue and benevolence. The Republican officials called for a new executioner from the crowd, yet the onlookers' hearts were so filled with sympathy for the elderly priest that none of them dared step forward. Were things to stay this way, the execution would be cancelled. My love, I beg of you. Despite being shaken by violent pain, the wife clung desperately onto her husband's sleeve. To the foolishly naive man, her actions were no less than a supreme command. I shall do it. The wife, watching the gallant figure of her husband ascend the steps to the scaffold, raised her voice and broke into a beloved song of hers. Blood, blood, blood. It wants blood. Shower the guillotine with drink. May the guillotine's thirst be quenched. What it wants is blood, blood, blood. Like magic, that familiar tune dispelled all sympathy from the crowd's hearts in an instant. A certain kind of joy spread from person to person like an infectious disease as the vile, bloodthirsty refrain echoed, its words sweeping across the execution site. Blood, blood, blood. It wants blood. Shower the guillotine with drink. May the guillotine's thirst be quenched. What it wants is blood, blood, blood. Surrounded by blessings, the husband proved his love towards his wife, as well as loyalty to his country, by beheading his very own benefactor. It was an honor. A commendable act of hardly worthy of shame. And so, as he returned to his wife's side and beheld the female newborn in her arms, he wept tears of joy. This child was born on a day of celebration. God has a duty to make her happy. Indeed, God would see to it. Look how lovely she is. I am certain everyone will be entranced with her. Indeed, no one would ever forget her. Marguerite, the jewel of St. Malo, the child damned at birth, the girl born at the foot of the guillotine. She came into this world with a mark resembling a guillotine scar around her neck, one that would never fade. Even as she passed her 10th year, she was still unable to speak. When she finally did open her mouth, what left her lips was the guillotine's refrain. Her mother went insane and died a madwoman. Her father was loathed as a murderer and met his end under the guillotine for charges of smuggling. But the girl herself harbored no sins of her own. She had never done anything wrong. For the child to suffer due to parental sin, well, that was just but another facet of an ever-cruel world of injustice. Silent most of the time, the girl would only recite the guillotine's bloody refrain every time she opened her mouth. The moment she set foot outside, the entire town would fall into an ominous silence. Her tragic madness, the cruelty of her birth. Having grown up amidst fear, loathing, hatred, and isolation, the girl lost everything before she came to possess a single thing in life. Though she was healthy in mind, her dysfunctional feelings could not comprehend the meaning of sorrow. And so, her case was what one could call a tragedy. The girl, thoroughly abnormal, a complete outcast. There were many who plotted to bring harm upon fair Margaret, yet all who touched her ended up decapitated without exception. She was under the guillotine's protection. Her curse would kill anyone that dared touch her. If we assumed beauty to be fleeting and fragile, in constant danger of being trampled on, then her beauty was indeed no beauty at all. And yet neither was she hideous, but a vacant, empty void. Eternity itself. Following her parents' death, she roamed the streets aimlessly like a discarded animal, mindless of what to eat or where to sleep, yet never tiring, never decaying. She is no human. Hardly could we fault anyone for saying so. It was the logical conclusion of the matter. Cliched as it may have been, she was inevitably declared a witch, for she was inhuman and abnormal, with over 100 already having perished after touching her. Her life could not be allowed. Her past needed to be buried. And in the end, Margaret was arrested and hauled off to the gallows. No one could touch her. Her treatment resembled the handling of a dangerous instrument, the process itself similar to herding sheep. Yet Margaret did not resist. Had she set her heart on it, she could have slaughtered her captors with ease. So why did she choose not to? The answer was quite simple, really. The meaning of death and execution lay beyond her comprehension. To her, decapitation was a common occurrence, whether it was her own head that fell or someone else's. She could not tell the difference. And so, on that day, she stood at the gallows, the very same place that once witnessed her father's gruesome duty, the place of her birth. Gazing into the faraway sunset, Margaret, with a heart pure and untainted, began her song. The refrain of blood, the hymn of the guillotine, singing God's curse like a prayer. Those were her first and, as many had thought, final words spoken as a human being. But at that moment, Margaret had an epiphany. The words remained eternally burned into their ears. The soul of a man, watching the spectacle for no particular reason amongst the crowd, was torn out its very foundations. He was none other than Asaver, a vagrant once known as Saint Germain, in another time as Paracelsus, or as Faust, Rosencreutz, and even Magnus. This man, currently known as Alessandro di Cagliostro, was swept away by her very being. She alone remained free from the law of this universe, an exquisite soul, not bound by shackles of eternal recurrence, one that would stay in the same place even after death. If such is the case, I will move every fiber of my being to save her. I shall kneel before her, reducing my very being to that of a slave. For the Princess of the Guillotine was a beauty transcending words. Gifting her with a necklace appropriate is my utmost. And thus her sentence was carried out. Margaret's life came to an end. However, the jewel of St. Malo had lost a shred of its luster. She had been born with nothing to begin with. As such, not even the loss of her life could grant her death. Ever since then, she had been all alone, singing endlessly in that eternal twilight, even to this very day. She sang the abominable refrain like an angel, her voice pure and rife with bittersweet beauty. I found myself angered. I wished to seethe with anger in her place. A girl who knew neither sorrow nor tears. If I did not do so, no one ever would. And that thought alone felt almost unbearable. I knew this to be hypocrisy on my part. I should have been minding my own business. But my heart ached at Marie's life. Why did this girl have to go through all of that? What did she ever do wrong? If there was a god out there, he would need to be cursed in her stead. We both found ourselves entranced by a girl feared and loathed by all. I couldn't deny that, no matter how much I wanted to.
私の愛しい人。
How deeply did she comprehend the meaning behind those words, I wonder?
これからは一緒。
Having borne witness to our origins, I can now focus on the battles that would no doubt await us both.
ああ、一緒だ。
There was no way I could have rejected Marie. And so I took her hand. A packed forge of sympathy, selfishness, and truth. I found myself stung with guilt. Just like that bastard. I wanted to save her. But the only way I could do that was by using her as a lethal weapon. Talk about a dilemma. So that said, I found myself imagining, just how wonderful would it be if I could give Marie a second chance at life, once this was all done and over with.